Good evening and welcome back to Sports Talk ATL. I am Chase Earl, joined by Alex Lord. And what a game did we have yesterday for the Atlanta Falcons. It felt like we were going to talk about this game a lot differently than we are actually going to talk about it, because the Eagles did what the Falcons usually did and blew a game that was pretty much out of hand. There was only really one way that the Eagles could have lost that game, and it was exactly how they lost it. They have a 3rd down and 3. They get a little cute. They go to Saquon Barkley. A lot of people are going to bark about Nick Sirianni for that call. I didn't mind the call. It was wide open. You just got to catch the ball. I mean, like, you can bark at Sirianni all you want, but at the end of the day, Saquon Barkley, you're put in the hand of your two best players, Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley. He doesn't catch the ball. That opens the door for Kirk Cousins. And listen, I would be lying if I was like, oh, yeah, Kirk Cousins is going to go lead us down the field with no timeouts. We haven't seen this guy for 7 quarters, really almost 8 quarters, throw it outside the numbers or take shots downfield outside of one cover, 0 look that he had yesterday that resulted in a Darnell Mooney touchdown. And all of a sudden, Kirk Cousins turned into Kirk Cousins again. And Matt Ryan said something on the Manning cast that I think is very interesting. And he said it to Peyton Manning, and Peyton Manning agreed. And he said, when you're going to a new team, did you not find it a lot easier to run the 2-minute drill than every other aspect of the offense? Because that's something that's pretty much the same in a lot of offenses. It's the things that you're practicing on every single day from the start of training camp. And you saw Kirk Cousins, who looked frankly pretty terrible for 7.5 quarters, 7 3/4 quarters, look like Kirk Cousins, the guy that you paid $180 million. And this Falcons offense, and there's 2 things. One, you go 0-2 with the way the Bucs and the Saints are playing. Chiefs on the docket, Bucs and Saints after that. You're looking really, really grim to make the postseason. I mean, things were I was ready to punt on the season with about 1:58. The other thing is, this is the kind of win, and I think you'll agree with me, that the momentum, like there's belief now in Kirk Cousins, that we feel it, that the players feel it, that Raheem Morris feels it. And in the NFL, I mean, that can take you places, because as we talk about all the time, the margins are so slim. And having that belief that Kirk Cousins, the Michael Penix stuff, at least for a few weeks, is not going to be there. Kirk Cousins is your guy. That's a guy that can win you football games, and he showed it yesterday.
Yeah, it was an opportunity. We talked about it going in. Everybody and their mother's picking the Eagles. First of all, that should have been your first sign that, 90% of the bets were all over the Eagles, that this was going to be a closer game than people, I think, realized in terms of, public betting. But, even more so when nobody really gave the Falcons a shot of even winning the football game. It was really just talk about, are they even going to make this a game? Even Falcons fans were like, hey, let's just not get embarrassed out there. There wasn't even a consideration that we could potentially win this football game. And I think that, a lot of people were thinking that week 1 was who this team is going to be. Week 2 isn't who this team is going to be at the end of the seasons. Teams evolve. And I think more than anything, what you saw from week 1 to week 2 was Zach Robinson show you that maybe, hey, Raheem Morris does know what he's doing in terms of hiring coordinators. Jimmy Lake called a very good game, in my opinion. I know that the Eagles gashed the defense in terms of on the ground, but I think that has more to do with execution from the players than it does, scheme. And a couple of times, Jimmy Lake called the absolute perfect defense to defend against Jalen Hurts and the Eagles offense. But I think, you got to tip your hat to Zach Robinson. He called a great game. The Falcons rushing attack was obviously the only reason the Falcons were in the game for the majority of it. And when you needed them, he came up for you. Kirk Cousins. I mean, not only is it going to, I think, let's talk about the first three and, 90% of the third quarter Kirk Cousins, other than that, throw to Darnell Mooney. And I think that throw to Darnell Mooney kind of woke him up. 0 pressure. Everybody's in his face. Jalen Carter, guys at your feet, guys at your back, people clawing, 300-pound monsters clawing at you. He sticks in there. He throws it where only Darnell Mooney can catch it. It was 0 coverage, like you mentioned, or a 0 blitz, man-to-man coverage across the board, and they scored a touchdown. I think seeing one go through the hoop like that, where he was like, okay, now I'm back in it. I'm seeing the bullets fly. The Achilles is holding up. I got it there. And then I think that propelled him a little bit. And then the game-winning drive, I think, he was almost on autopilot. Like, he knew where he was pretty much going before the ball snapped. I think one thing that was really impressive, Kirk Cousins, and, in talking about a veteran leading a 2-minute drive, is they did not change formations. That was one formation other than the Ray McLeod. Yeah, after the only
when they had enough time.
When the clock stopped, the only incompletion of the drive, then they switched out of that formation. But they ran all the way down the field in one formation, went to Darnell Mooney twice on very similar routes. And I think, when you're talking about when the calls for Penix and everything like that, Penix isn't doing that. You can bet your bottom dollar that there are some things Penix can do that Kirk Cousins has never been able to do from a talent perspective. But in terms of managing a clock and leading without panicking, without doing anything, that was the first time I watched. And shout out to the offensive line as well. The offensive line was absolutely perfect on that 2-minute drive as well. And obviously they weren't picking up pressure or anything like that, but they were still very, very impressive. I think, in terms of Falcons, Raheem Morris, Kirk Cousins, Jesse Bates is he's the best free agent signing in franchise history. He's better than Michael Turner. He's going to play out this contract. We'll see, but I'm saying it already. This guy has been the most impactful in terms of wins and losses, free agent signing in this franchise's history. Going into a game against the Chiefs, back in Atlanta, prime time, it was an opportunity to build momentum, and we did more than that. We did more than that. We woke up everyone to be like, this is why they gave Kirk Cousins all that money. The Achilles is still maybe healing. Maybe he is still learning to trust it, but this is a team that can win in multiple ways.
For Kirk Cousins, and a lot of people will bash Kirk Cousins for not rising to the occasion in the playoffs. But one thing you cannot talk, what we just saw yesterday, that's who Kirk Cousins has been his entire career when you're talking about game-winning drives in the regular season. He's as good as any quarterback in the NFL. I think he has 15 touchdown-winning game drives.
He's like 5-1 in his last Monday night football games.
Over his last 5 seasons. Touchdown-winning game drives. That's a lot different than going out there and getting a field goal. You're going to get in there and getting 6 points more than any other quarterback in football over that time span. So we got a little glimpse of what Kirk Cousins can do. I thought that was awesome. And I think it's very key to talk about. This isn't 100% Kirk Cousins. He talked about it after the game. He needs to be crisper and stuff like that. But that's going to give you a lot of confidence going forward. That's going to give the entire team. But I think more than anything gives Kirk Cousins hey, I'm back. I'm here. I know who I am. I can still do this. And I think as we talk about getting, a 1% better, I know it's a cliche, but it's the truth. It's the truth in this league. And him getting a little bit healthier week by week, he's going to get crisper. He's going to get better. He's going to get more comfortable in Zach Robinson's offense. And we've said this Falcons team from the beginning is going to be a lot better in the middle and the end of the year with all of these new pieces. But you got to survive the early part of the year. And this win was a huge part of surviving it, because you start out 2-3, you're okay. You start out 1-4, you're probably screwed. Now you got 3 games to get at least 1 win, and hell, they could get 2 or 3, because that you proved you can hang with the big dogs. Now I don't think Philadelphia is the best team in the league by any means, and the Chiefs are definitely going to be a better test. But going on the road on Monday Night Football in another team's home opener and pulling out a win the way that you did has to get everybody confidence. You're 100% right about the offensive line. It wasn't just the drive. They were damn near perfect the entire game. There was no pressure on Kirk Cousins. No. They were pushing those guys around. And that's something we talked about before the game. The Steelers' defensive line is so much better than the Eagles. And this was an opportunity for that offensive line, just like it was Kirk Cousins and the entire offense, to bounce back and say, hey, we're still one of the better units in the league. They proved that. They pushed the ball. Bijan Robinson, every time he touches the ball, it looks like he's going for 70 yards. I think he's already up there with the best running backs in the league, the Christian McCaffreys and all that. I mean, he's absolutely electric. About the only negative I can say, and I don't want to really end it on negative, but I feel like we have to talk about the one negative. The pass rush has got to get better. It has to get better. It wasn't just like they didn't get sacks. Jalen Hurts was sitting back there with all the time. He could run, he could throw, he could do whatever he wanted. It was non-existent. I will say the Eagles offensive line, we talked about it before the week, fantastic. Just as good as Atlanta's, if not better. Better. Yeah. I mean, it's right. It's been the best in the league for 5 years. I know they lost Kelsey, but it's been up there. So you got to give credit to that. But I wouldn't be surprised if, the Falcons have cleared a lot of cap space, if there's a move coming in the future. And if there's a move coming in the future, I definitely think adding more juice to that pass rush, if you're trying to compete this year, is necessary.
Yeah. I mean, if you can get pressure with 4 guys, or, at least touch a quarterback, it will change the entire landscape of a game. It is the ultimate equalizer. It will neutralize even the best passers. You go ask Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, the greatest quarterbacks of all time. what the worst thing, the reason why the Giants beat the Patriots is because they could get pressure with 4 guys. All they had to do was drop 7, 4 guys. It's the ultimate equalizer, and the Falcons can literally not touch a quarterback without bringing some simulated pressure. That's not saying they have to bring more than 4 guys, but some simulated pressure where they've got all those guys, Caden Ellis, Troy Anderson, all lined up, and then you're trying to confuse the quarterback. You can't do that every single play. If you can bring pressure with just 4 guys in your base defense, that's when you can take another step. And I agree completely that if you did, we're going all in. I mean, to a certain extent, I mean, you're either in or you're in. And the Judon and the Simmons acquisition says you're all in. Reddick is still not, if you're ready to pay somebody, trade for Reddick, pay him, don't pay Judon. I don't care. Reddick's the younger, better pass rusher anyways. That could be something to talk about coming down the pike.
I mean, to me, this defense is one more good pass rusher away from really being a good defense. And they got gashed at the end of the last game, but that's credit to the Eagles, their offensive line, their rushing attack.
I mean, that offensive line has got the best right tackle in the league, a top 5 left tackle, and the best guard duo in football. And the center is a little bit less of a known commodity.
Yeah, but he's been good to this point.
So that's probably the best offensive line in the league. Yeah, it was last year.
Yeah, I mean, you'll see it throughout the year, and I think the Falcons even. But I think this defense is one more piece away from being something really good because we've seen them perform for the most part really well. That second half of yesterday was about the only time you were like, damn, the defense is going to let us down here. But the offense,
they were gassed.
Yeah,
I mean, that 10-minute drive that the Eagles had after the Falcons took the lead after the Darnell Mooney touchdown, and the Eagles had like a 10-minute drive or something, maybe 9-minute drive.
Yeah.
And that really gassed them. But everything is going forward. Vibes are good in Atlanta. Sunday Night Football. Let's beat the 2-time defending champs. I'm ready.
Yeah, I mean, it literally, you could not feel better after what happened in week 1. And I feel like winning that way is almost the best way possible. I mean, obviously, you'd love to go out there and blow them out and everything be clicking on all cylinders, but that was always going to be difficult on the road. Winning like that galvanizes a team.
Yeah.
You talk about Raheem Morris, we were about to have a whole different conversation about Morris, Cousins, this entire
What about Raheem Morris going forward on 4th down on our side of the 50?
Yeah, I was ready to bash him, but it worked but then he does the same thing again and it doesn't work and you lose that game. Maybe we're talking about that, but at the end of the day, we don't have to talk about all that. We don't have to talk about any of that.
There are things we got to clean up. There are things we got to clean up. We'll talk about them later in the week.
There's no doubt. There's no doubt things we got to clean up. I mean, you got the Chiefs coming into business, but right now on Victory Tuesday, you don't get to say that often in this league. You don't even get to be on there. The Falcons haven't been on Monday night in quite some time. Feels amazing to come off a win. Everybody feels a little more vindicated, and now we got some juice moving forward, and it doesn't feel like the sky is falling, and that is all we asked for.